Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Fellowship in Essential Oils. Everyone seemed to love it in the 1960s and 70s, and our plan is to make you love it again today. We're talking about patchouli. How are you, Liz?
I'm all right, and I'm excited because over the past few weeks I've said, no, I don't like that oil a lot. Don't work with that oil. I love patchouli.
Interesting, because this is one I don't have any aversion to it, but it's not one that I would think that I reach for a lot. So maybe today I'll fall in love with it along with you as well, type of thing. So one thing I do find really interesting about patchouli is where people think it comes from, like what part of the plant. And really, it's a pretty dull, humble, kind of little plant, and it's actually stemmed still from the leaves, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little mint actually, which you wouldn't think when you smell it. I always think it smells like a wood, or it's very earthy, maybe a bit resinous. But yeah, it is a mint plant, which is very odd. And I have actually seen it growing in the botanical gardens in the conservatories, and I thought, oh, what's that? Oh my goodness, that's a patchouli plant, because it was just so like, why have we got this little boring little thing on the floor? It is only very small. But yeah, it makes no sense really that it comes, and excuse me, that has a big bearing on its history. Do you know much about the history of it?
Only smidgen, so I'd really like you to take us on a bit of a journey if you could.
So this is one of my favourite stories, really. I think probably the patchouli history and the nutmeg history, they make me happy to talk about. So around about the 16th, 17th century, it became very, very popular to have paisley shawls in, we'll say, in England. Do you know what a paisley shawl is?
Maybe just to find out, I'm not 100% sure, maybe there might be other people listening as well. So
I should have got my act together really and shown you a paisley pattern. But obviously we're talking about shawls, like
yes.
scarf things. But so they had like beautiful swirly patterns all over them, and they were very colourful and intricate patterns, and they came from India, and they were transported overseas, and they became extremely popular. Now they weren't called paisley shawls then; they were just called shawls. But then a factory up in Paisley, which is a Scottish city, said, "Oh, we can make those." So they decided that they were going to emulate them, and they wove these beautiful, beautiful scarves, shawls that looked exactly the same, but they didn't smell the same. And so then it became like this real class system that you could have one, but it was a bit like having a rip-off Fendi bag, I guess. It looks the same, but you just know that it's not. And the smell that people could perceive of the original ones was patchouli. And the reason why it was there was to protect these very valuable, beautiful, they were silk shawls from insects and moths in the long journey. So they were having like patchouli put in between them as an insect repellent. So that's a real key thing to remember, that it's insect repellent, especially against moths. So then it became like, well, oh my goodness. So they are earning so much money, more money off their patchouli, their beautiful scarves, their original ones, to ours, and we're investing a lot. We have got to find out, well, what's that smell? I'm guessing that they thought it was maybe like an essential oil, because they would have had essential oils by the 16th century. I'm guessing some kind of spray of perfume. So then pirates got involved, of like bandits getting on board the ships and trying to work it out. Well, of course, they weren't looking for a leaf, because it doesn't smell like a leaf. So they could never find it. And then the Indian merchants got wise to that, and they were like, well, what we'll do is we'll keep the leaves in, but as we get so close to the land, then we'll secrete away the leaves. So there was absolutely nothing to show at all for this. So then this black market was just, it couldn't happen, because they wanted to emulate the smell and they couldn't. So that is the story of patchouli and the paisley scarves.
Wow, interesting. You did remind me, to go off on a tangent, about one of my favorite jokes. Do you know why pirates are always angry? They just are.
I knew it was going to be something to do with ooh. You didn't give me enough chance then.
Sorry.
You know, my dad used to have like this party trick that anybody could throw a joke at, like a subject, and you could tell a joke on it. And it was
Wow.
like this it could do it about anything. And so I have got like a massive database of jokes, but I cannot tell them. the punchline just goes every time.
Oh, well, lucky you can talk about essential oils. You got something going for you.
Yeah, this is my equivalent, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah,
so true.
exactly. Far from a joke. Very serious matter here. So, Patchouli, you mentioned it's really great that you use it for, or it can be used as an insect repellent. Where are you? You know, you're saying you're loving it. Where are you using it for?
Well, so I'll let people in on a background joke that I had thought we were talking about rosemary today, and one of the reasons I hate rosemary, and we'll talk about this more in the rosemary video, is that I have got like a brain that never switches off. It's just like, and what about that? And what about that? And oh, we should do that. And oh, we could think about that. Oh, I should go down that. Oh, yes. Patchouli goes, no. Energy down from the head into the body. And so for somebody who has got that kind of monkey mind that can never shut off, it's just the most amazing oil. And the same reason really that like vetiver's like that as well, you know, it's just like, whoa, bring it all down. I use it as a warming component. So like it blends beautiful with things like ginger. So lovely for arthritis and rheumatism, not necessarily because it's good for pain, but because it brings that lovely warming nature. So emotionally then, if somebody is quite a cold person, things have made them bitter and cold, then patchouli helps to bring that up. Fantastic for muscle spasm, so things like period pains where there is a griping and feeling. And of course, aphrodisiac as well, which is kind of why, partly why it was so big in the 60s and 70s, very much a hippie movement thing, isn't it? What I should say to people who say, oh, I don't like it, I've got associations with the past. I don't actually think, my recollection of what it smelled like in the 1970s is not what it smells like now. And that's because the stuff you had in the past was synthetic, whereas these are essential oils, and so you don't have the sharpness. What's interesting about it as well is that it is like a fine wine. You have what's called a bourbon. So whereas most essential oils have got a shelf life. So like citrus oils, very short shelf life because the monoterpenes degrade, so between 6 and 12 months. Most will be like between 2-5 years, maybe 7 years. But patchouli gets better with age, like a fine wine. And so actually the one that I have is over 40 years old, and it's only for me to smell. I don't care how ill you are. You're not having it because it's going to be very little left soon. But it's magnificent as it gets older.
One thing that I've heard before, and I'd love you to verify or say whether it's just a myth, is that yes, as you said, it can be an aphrodisiac for a small amount, but too much of it can actually have the opposite effect.
Well, do you know what? I think that all essential oils have that to a certain extent. So that's funny. I was listening to myself talk about this yesterday. I was watching a video back about essential oils for pets, and I'd talked about this. So it's what's called a biphasic effect. And the best way to explain it is to talk about how booze, if you have some alcohol has a biphasic effect. Whereas if somebody who knows me will just laugh because like my biphasic effect is about 3.5 seconds. So because I just can't drink at all. But most people will have a lovely time of like, oh, it's very relaxing, and then we're having a lovely time, and oh my goodness, I love you. I told you how much I love you. And you're singing and you're dancing. And then suddenly you're like, I feel a bit sick. Maybe I'll punch someone. And now I'm going to start crying. And so we can say that like the alcohol is uplifting, but actually it's not. It's biphasic. It has two phases. It is uplifting and then it drops down. And a lot of essential oils have that. And in particular, lavender has that for a lot of people. That it will be, ylang ylang has it for most people, that it will be very soothing, very calming. My God, I've got a headache and I want to hit you. No, it changes on an axis. So yes, I would agree that it does have that effect.
So I guess just a little kind of usage note there as we're talking about it. People often think, oh, well, more is better. But with essential oils, that's very, very often not the case. It's very much about dilution, using a little bit, seeing how that goes, and then a little bit more. So, yeah, no need to overdo essential oils.
If people are interested in this idea of like unorthodox dilution rates, so because we all learn like usually you'll use like 3%, that's the way that you're taught. If maybe you have like 0.7% for ylang ylang, I think 0.1% or whatever of cinnamon. So there are different ones, but mainly it will be 3%. But actually, you can use way less. And anybody who reads like a recipe by me will see there's always way less. I never go to maximum dilution. Notice I always say maximum dilution. And the most interesting person to read about this is a guy called Dr. Bruce Bukowski. And he, or Bukowski maybe, and he talks about, or he calls his work spiritual phytoessencing. And so he goes smaller and smaller and smaller, like, for example, homeopathy does, but his go to 1/1,000,000th of a dilution.
Wow.
And so there is nothing left of the plant matter, purely the spirit of the
energetic signature. Yeah.
So yeah, so this whole I could talk for hours and hours about unorthodox dilution, but yeah, I agree that usually less is more.
Yeah. So with the I want to kind of dance around the aphrodisiac aspects more. How would you recommend using it? Is there certain any kind of sexual dysfunction or issues that people might have that patchouli would be specifically good for?
I would say that it's like tantric, in the way that it is very slowing. It's got a way of helping you see past the material world into in my tradition we would say past the veil. So whether that would be otherworldly or into the spirit of someone else that you're connecting in a different way. So I read something the other day that really, I thought, oh, that explains this so much better than the way that I do. So it was about Egyptian temples and the way that the priests placed fruit and food for the statue of the god. And I've always thought that's really weird. And why did they not, like, day after day think, well, it hasn't eaten it again? That's always bothered me a tad. And what it was explained was that we now understand that it was thought that the spirit of the god was housed within the statue, but that he ate the spirit, the car, we call it the car of the fruit. So he's not bothered about the fact that the cause and the actual and how that tastes. It's the spirit. And I think patchouli interacts in that way, that it's like, well, so is that what Namaste says? The light in me sees the light in you. Is that what that means?
Precisely, yeah.
So I think that is a patchouli interaction.
Would you recommend it would probably be a good oil for anyone who is feeling a bit anxious around sexual?
Oh yeah, anything to do with speed.
Yeah, okay.
And then and actually I'm interested to observe this. My husband has gone on to a new medication for his diabetes, which will change the way that his diabetes works. So he will sometimes on bad days experience hypos, and hypos feel like being anxious, being jittery. Now,
Mm.
being anxious, being jittery is definitely a good way to use, a good time to use patchouli. So I think I'll be interesting to observe. I'm going to go have the oil, have the oil. Well, although I didn't like the smell, so I don't know how lucky I'm going to be with that. But that feeling that you get with a hypo, that feeling that you get with a panic attack, that feeling you get with hot flushes, where I feel like I'm out of control, everything's going a bit blurred. And for me, because I am an anxious person, if I get really anxious, pins and needles in my fingers, pins and needles in my legs, again, it helps you feel like you're embodied in your body. So from us going back to this sexual thing we were talking about, the aphrodisiac thing, how many times have you had sex? Don't answer. How many times have you had sex where you've been thinking about something else? Where, and actually, you know, for like new parents, it's like the baby waking up, the kids outside. But you know, it could be, oh God, deadline, or all of those things. Whereas patchouli goes, yeah, no, down into your body, and it really deepens that experience and switches that off.
Yeah. And this is where, you know, when we look at it holistically, one of my favorite ways of using patchouli, I find it to be really, really great at helping us get into the present. So if you're, especially if you're doing, getting back into the body, great for accompanying anything like Tai Chi or yoga or anything where we're really focusing on the body as well. But you can even bring it in for a bit of kind of grounding into the moment to help with emotional stability. You know, a really great exercise that I did when I was at the New York School of Philosophy was, how are you feeling right now? And, you know, I invite you to do this as you're listening along now. And you might kind of go, oh, well, I'm feeling a little bit kind of, you know, restless and stressed because, you know, I was running late and I've just kind of got home and it's been a big hectic day. No. That's because of the past. That's the suffering of the past. How are you feeling right now? Oh, well, you know, I've still got a lot to do tonight. No, that's in the future. That's the anxiety about how the future is going to. And it's kind of like pushing, trying to dig a hole at the beach and push the sand from side to side. But what you actually notice a lot of the time when you start removing anything that's being influenced from the past or the future, that in that moment, all the sadness, which is from the past, all the anger, which is from the past, all the anxiety, which is from the future, there's nothing in the present. And you actually normally burrow down and you find contentment, happiness, even bliss. And so working with patchouli to kind of alleviate that stress, that anxiety, those unwanted low vibrational energies, patchouli is a really beautiful one to do that. Now, whether you're doing that with meditation or Tai Chi or yoga, or any of those kind of in-body practices, or just, you know, popping a little bit on your chest or under your nose while you're washing the dishes, or while you're sitting outside having a cup of tea or a glass of wine or something like that, is really, really great, helping you just kind of let go of that. I guess, yeah, those cumbersome effects of the past or the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that, and I don't agree with it. So I'll tell you what I don't agree with.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, because actually I do it, but it challenged my thinking. My thinking has been challenged a lot this week, I have to say. So if we're going to use it as tantric, then it's a sacred oil.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we're using it as a way to say to the brain and to whatever we're connecting with, this is sacred. So why would we undo that by putting it under our nose and washing up? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, okay.
I absolutely agree with the therapeutic way that you suggested using it. But I kind of think kind of it both ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I guess in a nutshell, I guess what we're saying is that it does bring us into the present.
Yeah.
And, you know, even, you know, tantric sex is definitely not my specialty kind of thing, but very much, I guess it's about being in connection with the energy, being aware of the energy, being in control of the energy. So I guess patchouli can be really great at helping to kind of be back in control in the present.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But so, oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. I can feel myself getting ready to sneeze. Yeah. So I guess like my work then kind of overstepped the mark there, but I'm very aware of this idea of, right, if you are going to use oils in a sacred way and you are going to use them intentionally sacred, then you do have to set some apart
Got you.
as sacred. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Very
So
much so.
and that's person to person, isn't it? You know, lots of people will go, I have no intention of using it that way. But if you were like I am, really carving out that path, then you have to engage with the oil and go, do I think you're a sacred thing? No, that's fine. Yeah, I can use it all the time. But if I do, then yeah, you are put away for sacred things.
And I guess as we've been doing, I think we're up to about 45 episodes now. So we've explored 45 different essential oils. We have kind of singled some out. Things like, I think, of Palo Santo, spikenard. You know, we probably put things like rose. We haven't discussed blue lotus yet, but blue lotus, those types of ones are those ones where, yeah, you might want to, because we do have that, we create those aromatic anchors that when we smell something, it takes us back to memories. And I guess if you have used patchouli for tantric sex, you probably don't want to be using it for becoming present and being aware of you washing the dishes as well. Would you agree?
Because you don't want to dilute that effect, do you?
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
It's
there any
just-
other, while we've gone off on a tangent on sacred oils, is there any that you'd go, they're definitely sacred oils?
You listed them. I would also say myrrh, frankincense and myrrh myself. But I would also, but I do use those medicinally as well. So I've kind of undone my own argument there. But yeah, they are sacred oils, aren't they? And likewise, again, things like cinnamon have sacred components, but I use them medicinally. So I've undone my own argument, but you know, thinking out loud.
Yeah, but interesting, and we'd love to know in the comments if people could choose, you know, 6 sacred oils, what would they choose as their kind of special 6? And I find, you know, maybe it's like crystals. What I found with crystals is the rarer the crystal, the more sacred and it is for more kind of higher work. Whereas your regular amethyst and your rose quartz are kind of for everyday things. So again, lavender, we use it quite often. You know, could that be an everyday oil, peppermint, and that type of thing? But there are those rarer oils that we've kind of dabbled in a few, and we'll probably get to a few more as we get to later episodes. And we've ticked off all the basic ones. Maybe the rarer oils are the ones like the spikenard that are definitely, or the Palo Santo, that are definitely ones for those special occasions. And that's why they only make themselves available on this planet just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I want to change the subject. Actually, this was something I was going to talk about in rosemary, but absolutely applies here. What personality, if you were to give it a gender, what gender would you give patchouli?
I'd lean towards the masculine, but I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not going to bet my last dollar on it.
Well, so that was my point, really. It definitely feels like a masculine oil to me. Well, I said earlier, I've been challenging my thinking quite a lot this week. Last term at uni, we studied the work of a lady called Mary Wollstonecraft, who was a philosopher at the end of the 18th century. And she wrote a tremendous piece called On Vindication of the Rights of Women. So she was like almost like the first feminist, if you like. And how her work came about was she was hanging around with philosophers anyway, and they were very interested in the philosophy of class. And it was the beginning of the class divide, you know, the rights of the poor person were starting to be explored as, you know, huge class divide in England in the 18th century. And she only lived a short life, actually. She was born, I think, 1759, died 1797, and she did a huge amount in those few years. But her most important work was this paper, where she challenged the work of another philosopher, a French philosopher called Jacques Rousseau, who talked about how, he was talking about something else, but he commented on how men had a certain nature and women had a certain nature, and that it was inherent. And her work says, and I am obviously summarizing and paraphrasing, that absolutely that there is like a male and female nature. There's no doubt about that. It's pervasive and it goes through everything. But those qualities are not inherent. They are schooled into and trained into women. And I was like, yes, I agree with that. So, for example, she was saying, like, for example, we put little girls in frilly dresses. We give them little dolls to play with. In those days, we don't really school them. They get married. They're not allowed to have a job. All of those things. Not that they're not capable. It's that we school them out. So, I took that on board, but then I kind of forgot it. But then I was challenged again by the work of a lady called Ruth Barrett, who writes about goddess rituals. And she did the same. She wrote it in a different way, but she was saying that we talk about gods and goddesses. We talk about gods being active, goddesses being passive, aggressive versus, she said, but when you think about it in terms of people, that is nothing more than an extension of patriarchal thinking, because there are men who are passive, there are men who are kind, who are empathic, there are women who are go-getters, there are women who are, and so therefore we can't really say god, goddess. It's like they're energies of the same thing. And I was like, yes, I feel like I really need to sit with that for a while and embrace that, because that really seems important to me, that I am perpetuating this when I say that an oil feels masculine, because what does that mean?
Would you say that masculine is that yang energy, feminine is that yin energy?
Well, what's masculine? What's yang about? What's yang about patchouli? It feels strong, actually, but it feels grounded, it feels calm, it feels receptive, it feels passive. Those are feminine principles. So what is it that I've actually given a name to?
I need to ponder that now.
Isn't it interesting when you get challenged like that? And I was thinking, well, so actually this is something that I do a lot in my work. Am I subconsciously like perpetuating a patriarchal ideal by teaching people this has a masculine energy? Because, well, actually, A, what is masculine, but B, like everything about patchouli that I'm saying is the opposite to masculine. It feels, well, actually, it feels like my husband is what it feels like to me. So that's a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd love to know, everyone in the comments, please let us know. What do you think? Is it masculine, feminine? Do we need to pick a gender to it? Yeah, is the plant just a plant? And I guess as humans, we like to interpret the oils and, but at the same time, I guess giving it that yin, yang, masculine, feminine energy allows us to connect with its energy and its personification as well. So it's something to ponder.
I do, and but I also think this is the danger of you take somebody else's information. That information is only valid to me. That I have got like that categorization in my brain, like that I want to embody the energy that my husband gives to me, and I know where it is in a bottle of oil, is extremely useful to my practice. But as I've sought to give it words, I've made it more difficult for somebody else.
Yeah. And I guess that comes back to a point we've made in past episodes of, we are not here to tell you what the answers are. We're here to prompt your own relationship and maybe give you different ways to explore your relationship with each of the oils we explore, aren't we?
Yep, exactly right.
Yeah. A couple of other holistic things. What I always find fascinating with the oils is when you look at how you use them physically, that you can use them on an emotional or a spiritual manner as well. We talked a little bit before about, using patchouli as an aphrodisiac and as an aphrodisiac, which is the anti-aphrodisiac, I guess. patchouli is really good and can be used for setting up those boundaries. It can be used to attract things that you want into your life, but also can be used in creative visualization to actually ward off, or even if you, it's a really great one if you just need some alone time. Even putting it around the entrance of your house to ward off unwanted visitors, unwanted, door knockers and different things like that. It has been used in the past for that kind of warding off as well. So it's kind of, sometimes I think of it as like a filter oil. You kind of put it there and only lets the good stuff through, but all the bad stuff doesn't come through. It also helps you be really clear, I guess, as you become present with yourself on what you will allow into your life and what you won't, rather than just kind of being in a chaotic soup of whatever comes at me, and I'll deal with it in that way.
I love that. And that, again, me and my reading this week, it's really made me think about I'm kind of delving into something that I'm considering writing about in the Mer book, but it's interesting here. So when we're thinking about boundaries, I'm not sure that the modern brain recognizes boundaries through scent.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe we need to use it topically. And the reason why I say that is because I've been thinking about the Reformation of the churches and how religion changed through the Reformation. And one of the things that, well, two of the things important to us that were taken away from religious and spiritual practice during the Reformation were oils, like the oils of catechumen and the oils of chrism, and incense. And incense had always been representative of this idea of, this is like a foggy boundary between divinity and human, and that when we have incense, we have a purified space where we can engage with the divine. Well, when the Reformation took that away, that went out of our consciousness.
Mm.
Likewise, the same with the oils, that the idea of divinity being in scent was taken away. So while it is there, I'm not sure our brains recognize that as like a put up a boundary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is, so I would say topical use might be more useful there, because we've always like used things topically for barriers. So for example, sun barriers, there is a physical reaction, but our brain also knows it to be that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So can you elaborate a little bit on, okay, so if we did want to use patchouli for maybe that, I need my solitude, I only need good opportunities to come through and that type of thing, would it just be an aromatic dressing, diluting it with a carrier and wearing it as your fragrance, but doing it as a spiritual anointing?
Yeah, I think so. That like intentional thing each day of going, well, this is why I'm using this oil.
Yeah.
Because not only are you like asking the universe to do it, but also you're asking yourself to make decisions that allow that to happen.
Yes, very much so.
So like for example, in my world, the phone rings and the kids want something. So on some days, it's got to be, I'm sorry, can't do that. Gonna have to wait for tomorrow. But you're telling your brain that you're going to have to make those decisions.
Yeah, got you. No, I love that for sure. Now, I also use a little bit, occasionally a drop with my nighttime moisturizer for my skincare as well. There's a bit of
yes. So actually, I had forgotten that. So I think maybe I said this when I was talking about cardamom. So when I went to Egypt in my 20s, my mother made me some absolutely beautiful creams to protect my very, very pitta skin. Obviously, I've got, people used to write Lizzie is an albino about me because I've got the whitest skin of anybody. So as you can imagine, like me and sun is not a good mix. And she made the most beautiful face protection cream that I'm going to actually make again this weekend for my husband to use in radiation therapy. And I shall put the patchouli into that with cardamom and calendula. So very, very protective. So if you've got very reactive skin, sore skin, so fantastic for like eczema, psoriasis, anything that is sore. Amazing. Very, 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 very soothing.
Yeah. So yeah, that, and I find is a really nice one. I think one of the things that I encourage people to do, I often speak to people. I'm at a big Mind Body Spirit Expo here in Brisbane, Australia this weekend. At a stand where I've got my books and my cards, and we're talking about essential oils. And one of the most common things I find with people is I go, I've got a whole range of essential oils, but I'm not using them. And that's, what I do on my social media is giving people different ideas on how to use their oils. But I think it can be really valuable for people to look at as you listen to our different episodes as well, as go, okay, well, how is it going to benefit me to use this oil? They always have those medicinal or healing purposes that Liz talks about as well. But some of these can be great for the skin. Some of them can be great for sleep. Some of them can uplift the mood in the morning. So do we pop it near the diffuser in the main area, and you pop it in the morning and elevate your mood? Or do you pop it, do we need to diffuse lavender every night to get a good night's sleep? Why not patchouli? Why not petitgrain? Why not something else kind of thing? So start to think about how you can get a bit more use out of your oils. And patchouli is a really nice one. For the skin, put it in the bathroom. For the bedtime, put it in the bedroom. That's where I really like to use it.
Going completely off, Pat, I remembered something else that is written in my book, which I'll show you my book in a minute. But snakes, it repels snakes. In India, it's used a lot to repel snakes.
So snakes and moths, obviously. So
Yeah.
good as a good repellent, yeah.
So on the note of what you just said, in case people don't know, this book is available for free download on Amazon. And it has 100 different oils in with safety, and also 60 different conditions, just in case anybody doesn't know my name, it's at the bottom. But if you go over and look for the Secret Healer or write Elizabeth Ashley into Amazon, you'll see that I have 23 books, but this one is for free for download, or you can obviously buy the paperback.
Amazing, thank you. Now let's talk about chakras. This one I have a bit of a special exception with my chakra rule, but where would you put patchouli in the chakras?
Right down the bottom.
Yep.
So I think you're probably going to say Earth Star. I'm going to say root and sacral, and I would agree if you are going to say Earth Star, yes.
Well, I'm not going to go that low, actually. I'm putting it more so with the base. I can see how it could go down to the Earth Star, but I find that it has a unique purpose. I find it can be really good for those people who have an overactive crown chakra. So when there's too much energy there, this is characterized by people that, they're the ones that come up to you and go, I just need to let you know that Archangel Raphael said you need to drink more water. Oh, I need to sit down. I'm having a download. And they're basically off with the fairies.
Can I just lay my hands on you? No.
Yeah.
Step away from me right now.
They're off with the fairies. They forget to eat and pay the bills and pick up the kids from school. And those are the types of people where that crown chakra, we want to be spiritually connected, but we are here having a physical existence. So we want to get that spiritual message and be in the physical. If we've let go of the physical, if we're not present in the physical, patchouli will help to settle that down, bring it back into balance. And so a really nice one then to help us sink into that base chakra and that physicality. And if you want to use it for the Earth Star chakra, I wouldn't be angry about that either, type of thing. So it's a base chakra by settling down the crown chakra.
Yep, I think that's an excellent explanation. But also, I'm also going to say, settling brow chakra.
Yep, anything overactive of that. Everyone's always like, oh, I want to stimulate. I want to work on the crown chakra, work on my intuition. But it's all, these are energy centers. We want to have energy centers balanced, not just more. Again, more is not necessarily better. Seems to be a message we're repeating in several different forms today. Astrologically, where would you put patchouli?
I'm going to say Venus and Pluto, but I haven't given it enough thought.
Okay. I'm going to say Saturn. I find because it is so into the present, that kind of disciplined energy. Discipline is a key word that really resonates with me. And Saturn, a lot of people say, oh, it's restriction. But, Saturn's a ruler of time. It's a ruler of, limiting oneself, having that kind of imposed what's the phrase I heard the other day? Imposed. No, it'll come to me as soon as we finish this thing. Imposed scarcity. Kind of that kind of, or delayed gratification is very Saturn. And I find Patchouli works really well with the Capricorn energy of that kind of, let's focus on what we're here to achieve. Let's not get excessive. Let's not scatter. Stay grounded. So I really like it with Saturn energy. And I don't have a lot of oils that I attribute to Saturn, but this is one that I'm pretty comfortable with.
I like that. And Saturn is cold and it's warming. And this idea of delayed gratification, actually, I should have talked more about that when we were talking about the aphrodisiac side of things. Very good for people who've got premature ejaculation. So delayed gratification, yeah. That's good. I like that. That's good.
Oh, good. So
I'll allow it this week.
Oh, thank you for your permission. Thank you. I'm so glad. So I guess you've let the cat out of the bag of what we're going to be talking about next week. I guess we should talk about
if we decide to agree next week. Yeah.
You'll have to go get another sprig out of the garden because I saw you waving that around, and that's why I was.
No, well, to be fair, it was always to go in the casserole anyway. But I've got to think of some more things to say because he used quite a lot of them today.
Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us with Fellowship in Essential Oils. Remember, we can talk about all these oils in other contexts, or you may have particular questions. You can leave a comment down below, but better still, if you're surfing down below, you'll see that we actually have the link for our next masterclass that's coming up very soon, where you get to spend 2 hours with Liz and I and ask whatever you want about patchouli, about other oils that we've discussed, or we'll go off on tangents. You notice that we've got a good tendency to do that, and we're happy to run off on a tangent with you. So make sure you look down below because there is a discount code. We like to look after our listeners and our viewers as well. So thank you very much for joining us. We will see you next week. Until then, take care.
Bye-bye.